This video is going to show you how to insert a zip for the back of your cushion. I'll just use these two small bits of fabric, but you'd be using your actual cushion fabric. So with your small bits of fabric, which are the back of your cushion, put your two right sides together. Make sure the edges line up. Then get your zip. Just place it where you'd like to have your zip. So for this one I'm just using a small zip, but you'd use a much larger one. Get your tailor's chalk and just mark where you want to see your zip. So how far you want to sew. So here I don't want to see the end of the zip, so I want it from this point to this point. I'll just mark that with my tailor's chalk. Pin my pieces of fabric together so it doesn't move when I start sewing. When you sew, we're going to sew from this point to the mark on stitch length 2 in straight stitch. Then when we get to that mark, we're going to switch our stitch length to 4. We're going to stitch from this point to this point. Then we're going to switch it back down to 2 and stitch from this point to the end. Remember, when you start, stitch about 1 centimetre, then do a reverse stitch. Then keep going. When you get to this point, do another reverse stitch before you switch it to 4. Switching to stitch length 4 to this point. Then switch to 2 and do a reverse. Continue all the way down to the end and do a reverse to finish that off. Okay, you need to leave a standard seam allowance, which is 1.5. You'll see that on your needle plate marked here, 1.5. That's where the edge of your fabric needs to sit. Putting your foot down, remove the first pin so you don't run over it. Make sure your stitch length is on 2 and straight. So 1 centimetre, hold down your reverse button, reverse back, and keep sewing all the way down to that point. Do another reverse. Keep your needle down, switch to stitch length 4. We're going to sew down to this point now. Switch your stitch length back to 2. Reverse stitch. And keep it going to the end. Reverse stitch. Now what you've got, stitch length 2, stitch length 4, stitch length 2. You can see here, your stitch lengths are wider than here. We're going to be undoing those at the end, that's why we want them wider. Your seam sewn down, see I've still got my marks here. I'm just going to transfer those marks to the other side so I can see where I need to place my zip. All I've done is press my zip flat with the iron. It's the right side, the wrong side of the fabric. Now with my zip, I have to line up the teeth of the zip with the seam line. Then pin that in place. Place one pin just on the side here at that line so you know where you have to stop stitching. So I want my stitching to going across there, so I just have to line that up with that line. Making sure my zip is still lined up with that seam line. Pin in. So we're going to be sewing this from the other side, so you need to have pins for your markers. Here, just going to move that zip down a little bit, just to make it easier to get these two nice and close together when I pin it. There's my other line, so I just want to put a pin on the side so I can see from the other side that's where I want to start going across. I have to make sure that I am just above the metal there, though, because if the needle hits that metal, it's going to break my needle. So we flip this over, and this is the side I'm going to stitch. Okay, so I've changed my foot from my normal foot to my zipper foot, so it helps with the bulk of the zip. With my zip also, I've opened my zip so I can sew this bit first, then move my zip up. So this part of the zip is too bulky to sew around. Just place 2 pins to secure that. Where the pins are is where I need to sew, so I'm just going to take out one of those pins, hold it nice and secure, my foot down, my needle in there to hold it in place. And I can remove the other pin, and we'll go across. Keeping the needle down, turn, that's now holding the zip in place. I'm going to sew down here. Before I get to this bulk, I'll have to stop and move my zip back up, making sure my zip is still, my seam is in the middle of those zip teeth. So that bulk is. I'm just going to raise this up, pull my zip up, get out of the way, and we should be able to continue on down. Lining that up again, so you can just lower the needle, make sure your stitch is lined up, and continue sewing down. So remember, you're sewing on the right side of the fabric. This is where I need to go across. Just going to mark up on a pin there. Keep my needle down. Just remove that pin. And coming back up the other side. Now again, I'm going to have to move that zip down. So I'll just raise my needle and raise my foot. Just move that zip down again so I miss out on that bulk. Okay, I moved the zip down to here. Just line that up again, make sure I'm in the right position for my stitching. Continue stitching all the way to the end. Just come across that top line again just to secure and zip in place. Once you've done that, just cutting your threads off. Then what we've got to do is open up stitching here. So simply get your quick unpick and break the stitching. Make sure you break the stitching, not the fabric. Be careful with that, otherwise you'll rip holes in your fabric. So I've undone all the stitching there with the quick unpick, and there is my zip. Fully functional, and that's what the back of your cushion should look like.